Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chantel and today is a very special day because it is March 25th, and as we may or may not know, everyone I think should probably know this, but that's just because I'm me. March 25th is of course Tolkien Reading Day. And this is an event that is held every year on March 25th. It was started by the Tolkien Society, and it is held on the date that the ring was destroyed, right? March 25th is the day that Frodo, that the ring is dropped into Mount Doom and Sauron is defeated and subsequently became the Gondorian New Year. So happy Gondorian New Year to everyone, and happy Tolkien Reading Day. So yeah, the Tolkien Society every year, they have a theme, and they have, they encourage everyone to sort of read some Tolkien. You can read any Tolkien you want, really. Just read something written by J.R.R. Tolkien, but you are encouraged to sort of read along a theme, and every year is a different theme. This year's theme is Unlikely Heroes, which I think is fantastic. No one does an unlikely hero better than J.R.R. Tolkien. And as I was thinking about what I might want to read for this year, I inevitably found my way back to The Hobbit and to the OG unlikely hero, Bilbo Baggins. No one in my mind is more of an unlikely hero than Bilbo. He is just a normal little guy who likes a cozy fire and some good food and close friends around him, and yet he finds himself on an epic adventure and facing all kinds of dangers, and somehow, some way, he in fact rises to every challenge that is put before him, and he comes away from his adventure forever changed, and yet in some ways fundamentally unchanged as well. And I want to use this opportunity to celebrate Bilbo as a fantastic and unlikely hero. So I will probably do a little bit of reading. I actually have my Kindle edition of The Hobbit right now, because my beat up old mass market paperback of The Hobbit is actually currently at my sister's house, because I think that my 7-year-old nephew would enjoy this story. I think it is the perfect story for him to have it read to him at age 7. So it is currently sitting at my sister's house for that purpose. So I am going to be reading from my Kindle edition of The Hobbit. So, yeah, I want to talk about Bilbo and how unlikely he is. And I just want to read like a couple of little passages from sort of the beginning of the book and then the end of the book, and talk about what, in my mind, makes Bilbo an unlikely hero, but a true one in many ways. And so, yeah, the first passage that I want to read is from the first chapter, An Unexpected Party. And this is when, right after the dwarves sing their song about the dragon horde, and Bilbo is going to get sort of his first taste for adventure. And so it says, as they sang, the hobbit felt the love of beautiful things made by hands and by cunning and by magic moving through him, a fierce and a jealous love, the desire of the hearts of dwarves. Then something tookish woke up inside him, and he wished to go and see the great mountains, and hear the pine trees and the waterfalls, and explore the caves, and wear a sword instead of a walking stick. He looked out of the window. The stars were out in a dark sky above the trees. He thought of the jewels of the dwarves shining in dark caverns. Suddenly, in the wood beyond the water, a flame leaped up. probably somebody lighting a wood fire, and he thought of plundering dragons, settling on his quiet hill, and kindling it all to flames. He shuddered, and very quickly he was plain Mr. Baggins of Bag End Underhill again. So I really love this passage because I think it's very relatable, you know? Like, whomst among us has not fantasized, at least momentarily, about going off on grand adventures, and then immediately realized that, you know, such things would probably be dangerous and uncomfortable, and actually it's probably better that we're just our regular selves here at home. And of course, Gandalf is Bilbo's biggest champion in all of this. The dwarves are rightly pretty skeptical about bringing this little fellow along with them as to whether he will actually be effective as a burglar. But Gandalf knows better. Gandalf, as usual, always knows better. And so a little bit later in the chapter, he says, "That's right," said Gandalf. "Let's have no more argument. I have chosen Mr. Baggins, and that ought to be enough for all of you. If I say he is a burglar he is, or will be when the time comes. There is a lot more in him than you guess, and a deal more than he has any idea of himself. You may possibly all live to thank me yet." And so, you know, Gandalf, as is the way of things, sees much more to Bilbo than anyone could possibly guess, even more than Bilbo himself understands. And ultimately, I think, you know, Bilbo becomes a very fun hero to follow and to root for. And there's lots of examples that I could show of Bilbo finding courage and standing up to, you know, the dangers that he encounters, you know, the goblins and Gollum, the spiders, the wolves, all of this stuff that happens to him. But I think the thing that I find most courageous is much later in the book, when Bilbo stands up to his friends, when Bilbo steals the Arkenstone and gives it to Bard and the Elven King as a way to try and broker peace between these conflicting factions. It could easily be seen as a betrayal of his friends, and in fact, I believe it's the Elven King who suggests that, you know, he has in fact betrayed his friends. Or no, Bard says it. Why do you tell us this? Are you betraying your friends, or are you threatening us? Right? And of course, Bilbo is doing neither of those things, right? He's just trying to help everybody, right? And I think that's what makes Bilbo such an unlikely hero, when he does everything he can, even potentially ruins the friendships that he's made along the course of his journey in order to save them, right? In order to save them, he potentially sabotages his relationships with him. It would have been much easier for him to just sit tight with the dwarves. And in fact, it would have been easier, even after he removed the Arkenstone and brought it to Bard and the Elven King, it would have been easier to stay with them and not return to the dwarves. But he does not do that. He goes back to the dwarves and he owns up to the company what he's done and tries to explain himself. And that is, in my mind, one of the most courageous things that Bilbo does in the entire course of this adventure, is standing up to his friends to attempt to do what is right. And that, I think, is what really makes Bilbo a really great sort of unlikely hero. And I did just want to read like one last passage. I have to read Thorin's death scene because I think this really encapsulates everything that makes Bilbo so lovable and makes Bilbo such a great protagonist. So here's Thorin's death scene. There indeed lay Thorin Oakenshield, wounded with many wounds, and his rent armor and notched axe were cast upon the floor. He looked up as Bilbo came beside him. "Farewell, good thief," he said. "I go now to the halls of waiting to sit beside my fathers until the world is renewed. Since I leave now all gold and silver and go where it is of little worth, I wish to part in friendship from you, and I would take back my words and deeds at the gate," because of course he's quite angry when Bilbo returns with and has, and it becomes clear that the Arkenstone has been taken. Bilbo knelt on one knee, filled with sorrow. "Farewell, King under the mountain," he said. "This is a bitter adventure, if it must end so, and not a mountain of gold can amend it. Yet I am glad that I have shared in your perils. That has been more than any Baggins deserves." "No," said Thorin. "There is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. Some courage and some wisdom, blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. But sad or merry, I must leave it now. Farewell." Then Bilbo turned away, and he went by himself and sat alone, wrapped in a blanket, and, whether you believe it or not, he wept until his eyes were red and his voice was hoarse. He was a kindly little soul. Indeed, it was long before he had the heart to make a joke again. "A mercy it is," he said at last to himself, "that I woke up when I did. I wish Thorin were living, but I am glad that we parted in kindness. You are a fool, Bilbo Baggins, and you made a great mess of that business with the stone, and there was a battle in spite of all your efforts to buy peace and quiet, but I suppose you can hardly be blamed for that." So that, I think, is the heart of Bilbo Baggins, right? He's kind, he values food and cheer over hoarded gold and big battles, and that is what makes him an unlikely hero. Emphasis on the hero part, I think, because that is in my mind, a very heroic quality, and one that should be more cultivated, I think, right? He's the epitome of non-toxic masculinity, Bilbo Baggins, and that is my discussion video, or a little bit of a talk about to celebrate Tolkien Reading Day. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite unlikely heroes in Tolkien's works are. There's a lot. I could have talked about any number of other characters, but I just wanted to focus on this one today, this time. So yeah, let's talk about it, and if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!